The Elder Scrolls is one of the most beloved video game franchises out there, and in recent years we've seen a rise of Elder Scrolls-inspired games. Last year we had Tainted Grail, and this year we have Fatekeeper, a first-person action RPG being published by THQ Nordic. Speaking of which, thank you to THQ Nordic for sponsoring this video. Now, first things first, when you look at the scale of this game and its world, the snowy peaks, the fog rolling in, and the temple complexes carved directly into the mountainside here, you'd naturally assume that this is the work of a AAA studio. Hell, it even hits you with a classic Elder Scrolls atmosphere right out the gate. But Fatekeeper is actually being built by Paraglacial, a team of literally 13 developers from Germany. Indeed, this team is even smaller than that of Sandfall Interactive, the people behind the Game of the Year of 2025, Expedition 33. And now, instead of relying on procedural generation to fill the space here like many other studios out there would have, these environments that you're seeing here are entirely handcrafted. Now, what really caught me off guard with Fatekeeper though is the verticality of the gameplay. You see, usually in these heavy first-person fantasy RPGs, your character has the, well, let's just say agility of a brick. But in Fatekeeper, you can actually do some light platforming. You can jump to vault over rocks and pull yourself over ledges to reach hidden areas, which, makes exploring these ancient ruins feel a lot more organic. And the world itself is also surprisingly interactive because you can smash buckets, destroy rock outcroppings, and break apart the scenery. Now this may seem like a small detail, but it makes your character feel properly strong and grounds you in the setting. Now, be warned, because Fatekeeper is one of those games that definitely does not hold your hand. You see, there are no glowing waypoints telling you exactly where to go, and you have to actually look at your surroundings and figure out environmental puzzles, like realizing you need to use telekinesis to pull a lever rather than wandering around the same hallway for 10 minutes. Fatekeeper also takes a page from the Souls-like playbook, with campfires serving as checkpoints, with undiscovered campfires even looking a little like sites of grace. But similar to Resident Evil's typewriters, you have to physically find these campfires to lock in your progress, which is a nice layer of tension to the exploration. As if you die without having saved, well, you will only have yourself to blame for losing that hour of progress you just made. Now, when it comes to the combat, Fatekeeper heavily channels the chaotic energy of the 2006 cult classic Dark Messiah. Yes, indeed, you have swords and spells, but your most lethal weapon is usually just gravity. If there are spikes on the wall, a giant hole in the floor, or a scenic cliffside, you can, and definitely should, just boot your enemies right into the abyss. Now, the ragdoll physics, as you can see here, are absolutely hilarious. And utilizing the environment is pretty much the optimal way to play. But when you do actually have to cross blades, the melee also feels properly heavy. Whether you're swinging your starting axe or wielding a two-handed greatsword, there is a very deliberate sense of weight. They also went all in on the brutality here. For example, if you land a strong enough swing right across the head of your enemy, you'll pull off a clean decapitation, which I'll unfortunately have to blur here because YouTube doesn't like video game violence. Oh, decapitation, very nice. Very cool. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, then you throw in the magic system into the mix, and here we have standard offensive spells like fireballs that actively sets enemies on fire, complete with their own death animations as they're burnt to a crisp. Now, throwing fire is nice and all, but telekinesis, which I've mentioned, is where things get really interesting. You see, instead of just pushing enemies away, you can use it to yank an approaching enemy off a ledge and pull them directly into traps. All this said, do not let the funny ragdolling fool you into a false sense of security, because the combat ramps up in difficulty very quickly, and you have a strict stamina meter, meaning you can't just endlessly spam your kick button without catching your breath. Ow. Yeah, okay, this is getting kinda difficult, honestly. Now, with the amount of games I play, I do consider myself relatively skillful, but that confidence didn't help me the further I got into the game, as I died several times in my first hour of gaming. Oh, boy. Ow. Even better, your health doesn't regenerate automatically either, as you have to actively brew and drink potions, forcing you to prepare for intense encounters much like you would in, say, The Witcher. That is to say, if you rush blindly into a room full of shield-bearing goblins and archers without preparing, you will get destroyed pretty quickly. Now, surviving these encounters naturally brings us to the progression side of things, and let me tell you, the skill tree in Fatekeeper absolutely does not mess around. And now, I was not expecting this at all, but it looks like the skill tree was just ripped out of an old school CRPG, featuring a huge branching web of passive upgrades and active abilities, and you can invest heavily into elemental magic, focus entirely on raw melee strength, or completely tailor your build to fit your specific playstyle. Now, this level of customization extends into the alchemy system as well. As you explore the caves and mountains, you'll be gathering various mushrooms and plants that you can then take back to an alchemy pot. But instead of just clicking a generic craft health potion button, you can actually mix and match different ingredients to create customized brews. For example, you can craft a potion that heals you for 12 points while simultaneously adding fire damage to your weapon attacks and increasing your stamina for 15 seconds. Now, this is a really smart system that rewards you for experimenting, and is definitely one of those things that made me think, why does not more games do this? Now, as for the story and characters you'll be spending your time with, well, right from the jump, Fatekeeper introduces a pretty interesting and unique dynamic. You play as this big, burly Viking-type warrior, complete with a bear head cloak and a surprisingly seasoned, gritty voice, and I was surprised at how talkative the main protagonist is.
The surface cannot be far now. I smell pine on the wind.
And beneath that, trouble.
Now, you aren't exploring these mountains entirely alone, as your main companion and spirit guide through all of this is a giant talking rat. Now, this little guy right here is highly animated right from the get-go, bantering with you and guiding you through the mechanics, including these druidic portals that are apparently incredibly painful to travel through. The game also sets up some genuinely interesting lore for the world itself, I think. Through the narration and environmental storytelling, you'll learn about the Island of Solace and the history of the Underdwellers, which is a society that built these huge stone fortifications. Apparently, they split into two factions. One group remained enlightened scholars, while the others fell into religious fanaticism, which led to the towering temples and gates you're now fighting your way through. It is very much a classic dark fantasy setup, and the devs have done a great job with the world building, pulling you in and making the setting feel lived in and authentic. Now, you might be wondering what the catch to all of this is. Well, Fatekeeper just launched into early access, and because it is being built by a tiny little team of 13 people, the current build is relatively short. If you just play straight through it, you're looking at about maybe 2 hours of gameplay if you don't get stuck somewhere. There are also a few technical quirks you're definitely going to run into, but it's nothing major, and I haven't experienced any hard crashes or anything like that. Now, to run it on a minimum spec, you'll need something like a 3070, and, well, even running it at a 4090 graphics card that I have, you can feel that it needs some optimization. But here's the thing, right? Paraglacial is completely upfront about the status of the game, and as such, they have priced the game accordingly to your wallet. You see, the game normally costs just $10, but right now there is a launch discount bringing it down to $7.99. So for the price of a fast food meal, you get a really fun 2-hour combat sandbox where you can kick goblins off of cliffs and scratch that classic RPG itch. If you want to support a passionate team of 13 people and get in on the floor of a really promising game, you can pick up Fatekeeper on Steam today. Just click on the link in the description or the pinned comment below to grab the game yourself. And again, thanks to THQ Nordic for sponsoring this video. This has been Mr. Holton, signing off.